And thanks for being with us on Morning Live. Now, businessman Kubentheran Moodley was granted bail of 150,000 rand by the Palm Ridge Specialised Crime Court yesterday, and the case has been postponed until early next year. Moodley was arrested on Tuesday at the OR Tambo International Airport on his way to attend a 5-day golf vacation in Dubai. And this according to the affidavit read by his lawyer, Piet du Plessis. The investigative directorate of the National Prosecuting Authority has charged him with theft, corruption, fraud and money laundering. Moodley is alleged to have brokered deals in contracts that were improperly awarded by state-owned Transnet to Regiments Capital and Trillian on behalf of Gupta-linked businesses. Now, investigating Directorate spokesperson Sindisiwe Seboka Twala joins us now to tell us a little bit more about what is going on here. And thanks so much for your time, Sindisiwe. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you so much for having us.
So firstly, Kubentheran Moodley, what was your interest in him, and how did he allegedly benefit from kickbacks for securing these government contracts?
So Kubentheran Moodley has been one of the persons that we've been very interested in, more particularly in terms of corruption that took place in Transnet. What we've been telling Parliament, even when we were going to Parliament with our submissions with the MP bigger mother body, we've been saying that state-owned entities are something that we are going to be prioritizing in this particular year. So our main interest with Kubentheran Moodley is we believe that he got money for doing absolutely nothing. Initially, we claim that he got money from facilitating or assisting, rather, Transnet to get him in jobs with Regiment Capital. And then we then say that he then duplicated the same thing when Trillian came to being, because we know that the Regiment Capital capital owners basically split up, and then Trillian was formed. So what we're saying is that he was literally just the middle person, not necessarily doing anything in particularly, but just introducing these particular persons, and then work was given, work in millions of rands. For doing all of this, we've told the court that we are claiming that he benefited about 307 million rand.
So 307 million rand, we understand the asset forfeiture unit also wants to seize some of his assets. So can you just talk to us about that and again, why?
So just to clarify, the asset forfeiture unit spoken about in court yesterday is the one stationed at the investigating directorate. What happened is that last year in June, Judge Mia in the Johannesburg High Court granted 232 million rand restraint that Moodley should not be able to access or basically dissipate the assets which form part of the restraint. And then that restraint order was confirmed in November last year to that effect. So we have had our eyes on Kubentheran Moodley for a while now. However, we still needed time to conclude the assessment of the regiment server that we obtained, because we know that many of the dealings and shenanigans that took place in Transnet will then emanate, or we've seen parts of it have emanated or are kept rather in the regiment server. So what will happen now is that we're happy. We've been saying that we have the restraint so that he cannot dissipate those assets. However, we still want the criminal aspect to kick off in full swing, hence our inclination to arrest him when we heard that he was boarding a flight to Dubai 2 days ago.
So tell us a little bit more about the circumstances of Moodley's arrest. As you indicate, he was on his way to Dubai on Tuesday evening. So how did you come to know about this?
So immediately after we got the final restraint order, our investigating officer, who's working both on the asset restraint aspect of it as well as the criminal matter, then notified various ports of entry or exit into our country that this person, please watch out for him. If he enters any of these premises, do let us know. He got the tip off then that this is what's going to happen. Kubentheran Moodley was about to board. We got the tip off on the day. Hence the panic to rush to the court in order to get the warrant issued in order to prevent him from leaving. And this we are fully behind, because we have come on record numerous times telling various television sites that our issue right now is extradition. Not necessarily that the extradition processes have not commenced, but we must note that each jurisdiction or each country has sovereignty. So when a person leaves and is in another country, it becomes quite cumbersome, quite costly to get them back. So if we can prevent them leaving, it's the best thing to do.
So you obviously tried to validate that particular argument that Moodley could be a flight risk, and once he leaves the country, it could be more difficult for you to basically bring him to justice. Now, you still want to investigate further, I would imagine, but in terms of the court's decision yesterday to actually grant him bail, what were the reasons given for that?
First and foremost, the court said that his constitutional right of being outside and not kept in a prison cell is paramount. And they said that we did not provide enough evidence to that he would actually flee. However, we shall abide by the court's decision. He has been granted 150,000 rand bail. He has, in court, handed over his passport to the investigating officer. That is quite appreciated. However, we know that because of the state of our borders, anything can happen. But what we are comforted by is that should he then decide to leave after making his submissions to court, that he's somebody whose roots are in South Africa, he won't leave, he has children, he has a wife, then we'll definitely not hesitate to go back to court and ask that his bail be revoked. And if he does do anything else in breach of the bail conditions, we know that he would not want to do that, and punitive measures could apply.
So what exactly is the value, as far as you could establish, of Moodley's assets? Because he claims that he actually relies on his wife. And the state has, however, charged him and his company, Albertime, and the asset forfeiture unit, as we spoke about a short while ago, actually did apply to attach his assets. But what exactly does he own? Because he claims that his wife is taking care of him.
So in his submission to court through his legal counsel, he says that the only reason his wife is supporting him right now is because of the bad press that he's been receiving, so he hasn't been able to get employment. He also told court that because his assets are or form part of the 232 million rand estate confirmed in November last year, this is the reason why he's supported by his wife. However, we know that he owns a house that is fully paid up, that is worth about 7 million rand, based in the Sandton area. However, he did mention to court that this forms part of a trust in which he's just a beneficiary who has rights to use. However, it's owned by his children. But what we can tell you is that this is not entirely true. However, we are comforted that at least his assets have been restrained. And if he does decide to do anything about that, or to leave the country rather, we will bring this before a court of law. However, we had requested court yesterday for until tomorrow to bring full details as to why we believed he's a flight risk. However, court said his liberty should prevail.
So just sticking with those assets, as per the asset forfeiture unit, and applying to attach some of those assets, some of the contents we understand were supposed to be boxes which included jewelry, Kruger rands and other valuable items, but it seems to have disappeared. Am I correct, or am I catching the wrong end of the stick here? What exactly is going on with that?
You definitely are not catching the wrong end of the stick. So last year, after the restraint was confirmed, or rather in between the process of the restraint being confirmed, he was supposed to then hand over about 3 security boxes, which were held in a particular system, to the curator appointed in the matter. He failed to do so. We then later brought him to court in an attempt to basically bring a contempt application, or to force him rather to comply with the restraint order. He went to court. He then told the court in camera, he said that he did not want it to be publicized, what he had done with the contents of those boxes. However, that's still in breach of the restraint order. So the final contempt application is still pending before the courts currently.
And then, of course, Sindisiwe, this case is linked to the bigger Gupta saga, and the NPA has been promising, NPA is on record stating that the EU will actually leave no stone unturned to bring the Guptas back to South Africa for trial. And then there was an Interpol red alert notice, and then there were reports that the United Arab Emirates has agreed to sign an extradition. What is the latest on these developments?
So while we were busy with the Interpol request, in the same week, the Dubai, rather, or the basically then decided that they'd ratify they'd sign rather the extradition treaty with South Africa, a treaty that had been dormant for many years. I think I need to put that on record. However, what it then means is that we then use that particular treaty to look at it and how it can best help us, because initially when we had applied to try and extradite, or planning to rather extradite the Gupta family, we had to use the multilateral agreement because the treaty had not been ratified as of that time. So what it now means is that we're still in talks with Interpol. Interpol requested us to send additional particulars responding to a list of questions about why we want the Gupta family to be red alerted. We have since complied with that. Now the ball is completely in Interpol's court. But what we must add in that respect, that is one of the premises that forced our hand to act in the manner that we did in this particular case. Because we know that even when extraditions are completed, or even when Interpol then decides to red alert persons, it does not guarantee their immediate return into the country. And we know that when people have means, they're able to move around the globe to various countries, which give them protection at the expense of them coming back into our country and accounting. And we know that as the fiscus currently stands, it's not at its best position. We cannot be wasting resources on persons that we have an inclination that they could possibly leave.
So I suppose the million-dollar question is, are you any closer to getting the Guptas to stand trial in this country at this stage?
We are punching, we are pulling, we are doing as best as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, wherever it is that they are protected by the jurisdiction of that particular country. And we can just hope that when the time comes, they'll eventually comply and return.
So whilst I have you, Sindisiwe, just a few other matters very briefly. So yesterday we spoke to some apartheid-era victims, and the NPA started working, or it indicated earlier in June, made a commitment that they would follow up on these matters. What has happened, and is there anything happening with regard to those cases from the TRC and the follow-up to that?
For starters, those cases do not fall within my unit. We basically focus just on corruption that emanated from the State Capture Commission, as well as the Nugent Commission and various other commissions. However, just to touch on that, because I am on the NPA, I know that there are certain, retired investigators from the Hawks that have been brought in to assist the NPA to do the investigation work, because we know that the bigger NPA does not investigate, for starters. And then secondly, there has been a team that is headed internally by the top structure of the NPA to basically spearhead that program and to make sure that it continues as quickly as possible. However, in terms of where we are currently, I'm not privy to that information.
Fair enough. And we have to put that question to the relevant people. But also just with regard to Dr. Zweli Mkhize, reported during the SIU tribunal that the case of the health minister has been referred to the NPA. Any update from the NPA side on that?
So how it works, when matters of that nature are then referred to the NPA, it's in the discretion of Advocate Herman Grenier to take the matters to decide to basically say that those matters fall within our scope, if they do, because we are governed by the proclamation of 2019 that was signed by the president. So we cannot just decide what we take and what we don't. So currently, as it stands, the report was just made public yesterday. So I think the top structure, the NDPP, will then decide where this will particularly fall, whether it will fall within the greater NPA or it will come to the investigating directorate.
Well, thanks so much for your time this morning. Spokesperson of the investigating Directorate, Sindisiwe Seboka, Twala, talking to us about the recent arrest of Kuben Moodley, who is the latest in terms of the developments in the complex matter related to the Guptas and state capture allegations. So that's where we're going to leave that one. And with that,